Here's an AMI This Week shortcut with Beth Deer.
In the UK, I identify the Great British Pound by the different size notes. In Canada now, I identify it by the colour and the braille markings. But I want to learn about a new currency. It's not physical. You can't feel or touch it. It's called Bitcoin, and it's an online currency. I was intrigued to learn that Calgary, Alberta is home to someone who knows all about Bitcoin. And it turns out there's a lot to learn. So here is part 1 of 2. Let's get educated. Ben Perrin, I understand that you're a Bitcoin educator.
Yeah, so I run a YouTube channel called BTC Sessions that's been around since 2016 and has about 2.5 million views on all the content. And I'm also head of marketing at a Canadian company called Bull Bitcoin.
Loaded question. Can you tell me what Bitcoin is?
Bitcoin is the first time that we have something that's digital that is also scarce. So what I mean by that, kind of like gold, there's a limited supply of gold, but we've never had something digital that was finite, that there's a limited supply of. If you think about if we tried to have a digital money and it was like a file, maybe I had a dollar bill and I wanted to email it to you. Well, if that was just a file, what happens when you email somebody a picture? They don't get the original picture, they actually get a copy of it. So then both of us have the same picture. If that was money, that's a big problem because then every time you or I spend money, we're printing money, essentially. We're creating money and that causes inflation. Anybody that uses Bitcoin maintains a copy of this giant global ledger, a record of who owns what, how many Bitcoin there are, and where they're sitting as far as in personal accounts. And whenever they get transacted, that global ledger gets updated simultaneously around the world by everybody. Bitcoin solved the problem of being able to transact person to person without the need for a bank in between.
How many Bitcoins are there?
There are 21 million Bitcoin that will ever be created. Currently, there's just shy of around 18 million Bitcoin in circulation at the moment. And the last 3 million or so are going to gradually be released or created over the next 120 years. But Bitcoin can be divided, kind of like a dollar. There's 100 pennies in a dollar, 100 cents in a dollar. Bitcoin can actually be divided into far smaller numbers. So in one Bitcoin, there's 100 million smaller units called sats or Satoshis. And yeah, you can transact with these.
How much is one Bitcoin worth?
So that number fluctuates quite a bit. It's still very early in Bitcoin, and because of that, the price can fluctuate quite a bit. Kind of like when you see a new stock in its infancy, the price of that stock can move quite a bit, especially if there's not a lot of money in it yet. So currently at the time of filming this, which could vary quite a bit from the time it airs, one Bitcoin is around 11,000 Canadian dollars.
Is inflation essentially like impossible using Bitcoin?
It's not impossible. In fact, Bitcoin has inflation currently because there's still new Bitcoin being created. Every 4 years, that number of new Bitcoin created gets cut in half. So in 2012, that number got cut to 25 new Bitcoin every 10 minutes. In 2016, it got cut to 12.5 Bitcoin, and that's going to keep cutting in half until around the year 2140, when you can't cut it in half anymore. When we get down to 1 Satoshi created every 10 minutes, you can't cut that in half anymore, and at that point, there will be no new Bitcoin ever created.
Well, Ben, 5 minutes ago, I knew nothing about Bitcoin, and I still don't know that much. I have a lot to learn, but I'm on the right path for sure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for having me as well. It was a pleasure.